keynote for the morning, starting our day off strong. Tim Kosiba.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. It's a great Saturday morning. I really appreciate the invitation to be here today. Look, I have to do some written comments. I'll explain that in a little bit, but after that, we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. And I should have plenty of time to do as many questions as you like. Obviously, it's a great venue to be here in Savannah. It's one of my favorite places in the country to be. So I live only about 2.5 hours from here, near Fort Gordon in Augusta. So it was a nice drive down. Special thanks, I guess, to Jay and also to Matt, the co-founders of Reset, for the invitation to speak today. Really appreciate it. It's great to meet all of you. So after yesterday's talk by Josh Corman, I agree with everything Josh said, by the way. Let me play a short intro that was part of a presentation recently by Jim Robb. If you don't know Jim, Jim is the president and CEO of the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or otherwise known as NERC. So I'll go into my talk a little bit, but I figure this would be a nice little scene setter before we get started. So on the next slide is a link, and I think I have to hold the microphone here.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, it's always an honor to be here to help set the table for this discussion. The thickness of those binders does intimidate me, just so you know. I'd also like to extend our congratulations to Commissioners Sweat and Lacerte on their confirmations. I look forward to working with all of you in the coming months and years. So I don't really want to regurgitate what's in our written statement, nor what you've heard me say so many times in the past. But in many technical ways, the reliability of the power grid remains extremely high. But paradoxically, the risks to reliability continue to mount. In fact, we're seeing an increasing number of small-scale events and near misses that continue to reinforce what we can't call anything but a 5-alarm fire when it comes to reliability. And we're facing those for issues you've all noted. Dwindling resource adequacy with atrophying reliability services, continuing extreme weather patterns, critical interdependency with natural gas and other sectors, especially telecom, and these often manifest themselves under extreme conditions, challenging policies impacting resource and fuel development, load development, and the ability to site and permit needed infrastructure, and also just an escalating toxic soup of security risks, both physical and cyber. This past spring, the Iberian Peninsula experienced a widespread cascading blackout, reportedly due to insufficient reactive power management, which resulted in loss of control for both voltage and frequency, with no way for the operator to rebalance them. As we continue to add inverter-based resources to the grid, we need to stay ahead of these unfamiliar dynamics that result. And these are the issues that keep us up at night, ensuring that we're using every tool in our toolbox to protect the grid's reliability, while still enabling the extraordinary growth that's projected in the coming years to materialize reliably. We use our reliability standards, reliability guidelines, NERC alerts, and EISAC information sharing tools, such as the Critical Broadcast Program and the All Points Bulletins, to communicate actions to industry that they need to take to keep the grid reliable, resilient, and secure in an ever-escalating risk and threat environment. The Commission has been a great partner in supporting these programs. We have strong and very productive alignment with the Office of Electric Reliability, and the continent and its 400 million citizens owes you its gratitude. NERC, working with our 6 regional entities, collectively called the ERO Enterprise, affectionately called the ERO Enterprise, I might add, is helping to enable our energy future, helping to assure that the nation can reliably meet the growing need for electricity that's critical to economic prosperity and our national security. So I want to spend my remaining time focused on our collective priorities for the coming months. And I see we already have the slide up. The first is modernizing our oversight processes. Our marquee effort here is an overhaul of our standards development process, led by a cross-sector representative group of stakeholders to substantially reimagine our existing process, which is struggling to keep pace with the rate of risk development. The only sacred cow in our charge to this task force is to maintain and where possible, even enhance industry participation and validation of the mandatory requirements ultimately proposed. We're also rethinking elements of our organizational registry to ensure that we have the right entities registered given their ability to impact grid reliability. With the Commission's approval, we are expanding the number of IBRs in the registry to recognize their common mode failure risks and are considering the proper approach to data centers and large loads. Finally, we're implementing the compliance monitoring and enforcement program flexibility that the Commission granted to us in your order in December 2024, which allows us to propose abeyance periods for certain novel and challenging requirements in our standards and to significantly streamline how we process low-risk violations. The second is how we can enable the reliable interconnection of large loads. And I know that the second panel will focus specifically on this issue. But we absolutely understand that data center growth is a key national security priority. And we're doing our part to ensure that these loads can reliably connect at the speed and scale that they desire. These loads have the potential, though, to impact both elements of reliability. The energy adequacy issue is well known. Less well understood is their operational performance and how they impact grid reliability. We're aware of the challenges associated with ensuring sufficient resources are available to meet the energy demands for existing and new customers and the very challenging cost allocation issues occupying many economic regulators. As you would expect, our focus is on load behavior and ensuring that they support reliable system operations. Our large load task force is tasked with understanding the scope of the risk to the reliable operation of the grid, identifying potential impacts, and developing agreed upon mitigations. And given the scale of proposed data centers and data center campuses, some of the scale of 1 to 5 nuclear units, it's important that they can be modeled and operated in a manner that's consistent with such unprecedented scale. Through our event analysis program and dissection of last summer's unexpected load losses in Virginia, we're developing a better understanding of large load interconnection requirements and have highlighted those in our recommendations to industry through our recent Level 2 alert. We anticipate codifying those in a reliability guideline later this year or early next year, and maybe eventually even in auditable standards. However, our goal remains clear, right? To enable more of these data centers to be added without compromising, and to the extent they can, even enhancing the reliability of the whole power system. Third area of focus is modernizing our reliability assessments. This year, we've taken the first step towards creating a continentally consistent wide area energy assessment to provide a better understanding of the energy adequacy risks across North America. Ultimately, we aspire to link our recent work on design basis, capacity accreditation, and interregional transmission into a more comprehensive view of reliability in our long-term reliability assessments. Once built, we will also be able to conduct periodic assessments of key reliability indicators such as small signal stability, the adequacy of interconnection-wide reliability services such as frequency, voltage, and ramping, and other reliability analyses as needed on a consistent basis across the continent. Fourth area of focus is completing a set of what I can't.
So he goes into a bunch of other things again, and I just wanted to start off. First of all, it's a somewhat of a positive message because we'll go a little bit into a valley and talk about the threats. But that was a recent testimony that he gave. And I wanted to start off with that because it's somewhat positive. He talks a little bit about the future and what they're going to do. And I'll sort of finish my talk a little bit about that as well. But I wanted to sort of set the stage the way we finished it yesterday. I thought maybe I'll start a Saturday morning with a little bit of a positive message. We'll go into a valley and then we'll come back up again, okay? So after 33 years in the U.S. government, I was one of many public servants that had the privilege of serving this great nation, and I would do it again tomorrow. I started my career in NCIS in 1989, and after 7 years, moved to the Federal Bureau of Investigation in 1996 and ran a digital forensics lab. My career path crossed with the National Security Agency in 1999, and after the events of 9/11, I was offered a position later as a tech director for what was known then as the Joint Functional Component Command for Network Warfare, JFCCNW. Military loves their acronyms. the predecessor to the United States Cyber Command, as we know it today. It was the new organization being formed to work on planning and capabilities associated with an offensive cyber program, most of which we could not even mention back then. That position in 2006 started an amazing set of opportunities with NSA and United States Cyber Command. After the position in JFCCNW and the newly formed U.S. Cyber Command, I transitioned to a tech director in Tailored Access Operations, otherwise known as TAO, which involved exploitation mission of targeting nation-state actors in cyber. Later, I was offered the position to be the chief of NSA's liaison office in Canberra, Australia, and also the deputy chief of the organization that was responsible for relationships with private industry, before being tapped to take over as the chief of CNO, what formerly known as TAO, which is what became CNO after Snowden, which is one of NSA's treasured positions today. It was a privilege to be the chief of an organization that is truly a national asset, comprised of people that are unsung heroes in cyberspace. I finished my career as the deputy commander of NSA Georgia, about 2.5 hours north of here, located in Fort Gordon in 2021. It's the largest NSA field site outside of Fort Meade, Maryland. I share this with you as a backdrop to what I will talk about this morning. I lived most of my cyber career on the offensive side, dealing with war planning and positions in cyber that can provide our military the operational edge in the war-fighting environment. Many agree that the first shot in the next conflict will start in cyberspace, and I agree. Our offensive cyber doctrine was often grounded in the concept of proportional response. If we, meaning the United States and our allies, were hit with a catastrophic cyber attack, what would our proportionate response be? What could we respond with that would not be seen as escalatory to the conflict and certainly not have an adverse impact on human beings, and above all, not something that would be envisioned as catastrophic in nature? Obviously, we're seeing that play out in the news right now, right, regarding the use of tomahawks in the UK war. When I talked to Jay about what to focus on today, he mentioned threats and resiliency with respect to our critical infrastructure, so we'll start there. It is nearly impossible to determine the exact percentage of program logic controllers that are being exploited throughout the country without direct security assessments of all these systems. There are no publicly available, real-time global statistics on the total percentage of all operational PLCs that are actively compromised at any given moment. We do know that research and government advisories continue to stress that PLCs are a high priority target for adversaries due to their historical neglect of security and lack of built-in defense features. Their high vulnerability is because most major PLC vendors have produced devices found to be vulnerable to known attack vectors, like outdated operating systems and communication protocols that have little or no security, clearly making them attractive targets. Threat actors, ranging from nation states to cyber criminal groups, actively develop and deploy malware to target and manipulate PLCs to disrupt physical operations. So Rob Lee, former NSA, the CEO of Dragos, many of you probably know him, but he's also now Lieutenant Colonel Rob Lee in the 91st Brigade in the Army National Guard that's focused on OT and ICS cybersecurity and response. Recently was interviewed during the World Economic Forum, and he posted the following. This is a quote. "Digitalization, automation, and interconnectedness mean these OT environments are no longer isolated. And just as connectivity has increased convenience and efficiency, it has also dramatically expanded the attack surface available to malicious actors. sophisticated state-sponsored hackers and other bad actors now routinely probe and target OT networks, seeking vulnerabilities that they can exploit to cause catastrophic disruptions. Too often, security investments in OT haven't kept up with the growing threat, leaving these networks unmonitored and vulnerable, end quote. We know the threats only continue to grow every day, but I would offer that we continue to have a, quote, culture gap with the way our adversaries view this fight and the way we as Americans do. The culture gap is impacting our ability to understand the urgency of today and how we approach these solutions. Ask one question. Why would an adversary like China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea, just to name a few, simply exist and exploit our critical infrastructure components to cause catastrophic disruptions, ultimately resulting in death tolls we often cannot imagine? Because as a culture in America, we do not think the way our adversaries do. Mass casualties, collateral damage, as it sometimes is characterized, are simply unacceptable to us as humans. We are not a society that promotes these types of effects on our adversaries. We have been a country founded on faith-based ideals that looks to be the, quote, leveler in disputes in order to bring a conflict to a reasonable end. I would offer that a gap exists between us in how our adversaries are, in fact, willing and able to cause death and destruction at a catastrophic scale we simply cannot conceive. This is what keeps me up at night. Is there another reason why you would lie in wait on our critical infrastructure and that of our allies except to do grave damage? Imagine a scenario where the power grid goes down for days or a city's water supply is compromised. These are not just scenarios from a dystopian novel. They are real threats in our modern world that you all know and live each and every day. According to recent reports, the U.S. has seen a significant increase in cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, with a 300% rise in ransomware incidents over the past 3 years. As was talked about yesterday, with 85% of the critical infrastructure in the U.S. privately owned, collaboration between public and private sectors is essential to addressing these threats. Now factor this in. In the current production of environment for new transformer manufacturing in the United States, we require a wait time of a minimum of 2 to 4 years for new orders, with some of the more specialized transformers having a 5-year wait time. Some of this is due to supply chain disruptions from the COVID-19 pandemic, with many of those issues still persisting today. The ongoing increasing demand for electrification and new energy projects in the U.S., including new renewable energy products like solar and offshore wind farms, EV charging stations, and the real big one, the huge explosions of new data centers that are really driving up demand. A significant portion of the U.S. grid is nearing the end of its service life, which requires the replacement of the transformers. Lastly, the industry is facing difficulties attracting and retaining qualified talent and skilled labor. In 2020, we were looking at a lead time of a few months. The average lead times for all transformers has risen from around 50 weeks in around 2021 to around 125 weeks in 2024. These long wait times are causing projects to be postponed by 1 or 2 years, with transformer prices increasing significantly due to high demand and raw material costs. These higher prices could eventually lead to higher electricity costs for businesses and residential customers. Now let's talk about something that runs counter to what you've learned in your careers, simply because of the stakes we're facing in today's critical infrastructure landscape. When a critical infrastructure system like our energy grid, a water treatment plant, or a transportation network, is found to be compromised, operators and incident responders must make extremely difficult trade-offs. And here's what typically happens, and some of this was touched on yesterday. The risk balancing and safety that comes over security. If the compromised system controls essential services like power, water, healthcare, and emergency response, keeping it running may be safer than disconnecting or wiping it immediately. Our goal will be to prevent physical harm to people or cause a large-scale disruption. One solution might be to isolate the compromised system logically in order to maintain the critical operations. Let's say we do incident containment while it's running. Since you can't pull the plug, responders will use containment measures to limit the attack's movement by doing some network segmentation, a switch to manual or degraded modes, for example, local control or reduced automation. You also might do some intrusion monitoring to watch the attacker's behavior in real time if possible. And you may let the adversary think they still have access while you quietly reroute their control to clean systems. Another option might be parallel clean environment creation. While the compromised system continues running, perhaps the engineers will work on building a clean replica environment and prepare a switchover plan to minimize the downtime once a transition is possible. Preparing for this often involves the concept of what is known as digital twins, or offline simulations to verify control logic integrity before you redeploy. Another might be the coordination with national security and safety agencies. When a system is part of a critical national infrastructure, federal and state agencies will get involved. A few like CISA, DOE, DHS, and FBI may provide technical and operational assistance. The organization may move under what is known as incident command protocols, treating it like a hybrid cyber-physical emergency. Remember the potential impacts to our military forces that are equally reliant on this critical infrastructure, just as much as the population of a community. As far as doing post-event forensics and recovery, once the system can be safely taken offline, you can start the forensic imaging and analysis of compromised assets to determine the root cause into the attacker entry and the persistence mechanisms. At that point, hopefully you have verified clean backup to restore the rebuilt infrastructure. So let's look at a real-world example of the Colonial Pipeline ransomware incident of 2021. Operators shut down operations preemptively not because control systems were damaged, but because they couldn't guarantee operational safety after the compromise. That decision caused the fuel shortages, but prevented potential accidents that could have caused life or death situations. So let's explore the future of critical infrastructure cybersecurity and its essential role in national security. Again, our energy systems, our water supplies, our healthcare, transportation systems, banking systems, and even our election systems that are controlled by the states. These are the backbone of our society. As we become increasingly dependent on digital systems, ensuring their security is not just a technical challenge, but a matter of national security. I'll delve into a current landscape of cybersecurity as it relates to critical infrastructure and explore some of the emerging threats, highlight new technological solutions on the horizon, and discuss some of the policy considerations and examine the national security implications. First, the current landscape of critical infrastructure cybersecurity. Let's restate in a slightly different way what we mean by critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure encompasses the systems and assets so vital that their incapacity would have a debilitating impact on national security, the economy, our public health, and safety of our citizens. The current state of cybersecurity in these sectors is a mixed bag. While many organizations have made significant strides in securing their systems, others still struggle with outdated technology, insufficient funding, and a shortage of skilled personnel. In the past 3 years alone, we've seen several high-profile cyber attacks. In December of 22, a physical attack on power substations in North Carolina led to widespread outages. Most recently, in August of 25, a breach of the F5 networks, a cybersecurity provider, potentially exposed sensitive data. The actor took advantage of security vulnerabilities in one of their products, which prompted F5 to issue patches and security updates to mitigate the vulnerability and strengthen their security measures. These incidents only underscore the weaknesses we face and the continued urgent need for robust security instruments. As we look to the future, the landscape of cybersecurity is rapidly evolving, driven by advancements in technology and the increasing sophistication of cyber threats, and we'll talk about a few. First, artificial intelligence and machine learning, AI/ML. AI and machine learning are double-edged swords in cybersecurity. On one hand, they empower defenders to analyze vast amounts of data, detect anomalies, and respond to threats more quickly. On the other hand, cyber attackers are also using AI to create more sophisticated attacks, such as adaptive malware that can learn from its environment and evade traditional defenses with more targeted and dynamic attacks. Next, the Internet of Things. The proliferation of IoT devices has expanded the attack surface. These devices, often with minimal security, can be exploited as entry points into larger networks. A compromised IoT device could be used to launch distributed denial of service attacks or as a gateway to more sensitive data. Next is blockchain technology. While blockchain offers enhanced data integrity and transparency, it also presents unique challenges. For instance, the immutable nature of blockchain means that any compromised data can't be easily altered or erased. This can be both a benefit and a risk, particularly if vulnerabilities are discovered after the fact. Quantum computing. Quantum computing promises to revolutionize many fields, but it also poses a threat to current encryption methods. Once quantum computers become viable, they could potentially break widely used encryption algorithms, making sensitive data vulnerable. The rise of deepfakes and synthetic media present new challenges for trust and information security. Malicious actors can create convincing fake videos or audio recordings, which can be used for misinformation, fraud, or even blackmail. Advanced persistent threats, or APTs, are prolonged and targeted cyber attacks, often orchestrated by nation-state actors. These attacks are highly complicated, typically aiming to steal data over an extended period of time without being detected. Another emerging challenge is the vulnerability of supply chains. As systems become more interconnected, an attack on a single supplier can have cascading effects across multiple sectors. The obvious example is the compromise of SolarWinds, which exploited trusted software vendors to infiltrate multiple downstream targets. Additionally, insider threats remain a significant concern, with employees potentially compromising security, either maliciously or accidentally. These emerging technologies bring incredible opportunities, but also introduce new vulnerabilities. It's crucial for cybersecurity strategies to evolve alongside these advancements to ensure we stay one step ahead of potential threats. Now, on the bright side, technology is also our greatest ally in this battle. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are transforming threat detection by analyzing vast amounts of data in real time, identifying anomalies that could indicate an attack. The shift towards zero trust architecture is another promising development. This model assumes that no entity, whether inside or outside the network, can be trusted by default, thereby enhancing security. Emerging technologies like blockchain are also being explored to secure data integrity, and the Internet of Things is seeing a greater emphasis on security. So what are some of the policy and regulatory considerations? As we navigate these technological advancements, policy and regulation play a critical role. Currently, there are several standards and frameworks in place, such as from NIST and the GDPR, that guide how organizations protect critical infrastructure. However, the rapidly evolving cyber threat landscape calls for more unified and cohesive standards. As mentioned thus far, cyber threats evolve faster than the defenses meant to contain them. The growing complexity of IT and OT systems, coupled with the expansion of global supply chains, requires a unified and cohesive set of cybersecurity standards that bridge sectors, technologies, and jurisdictions. Fragmented approaches can no longer provide sufficient resilience. Instead, a harmonized framework rooted in transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement is essential for safeguarding critical infrastructure and natural interests alike. This cohesive cybersecurity architecture begins with a risk-based governance. Adopting a framework such as the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, or CSF 2.0, ensures organizations operate from a shared understanding of risk and maturity. This model, which is structured around core functions of identity, protect, detect, respond, and recover, provides a universal vocabulary for executives, regulators, and technical teams. Building from this foundation, organizations must implement zero trust access principles, requiring continuous verification of user and device identity, least privilege permissions, and adaptive monitoring across the board. These measures, supported by NIST publication 800-207 guidelines, help close gaps left by traditional perimeter-based defenses. To counter the growing frequency of supply chain compromises, software transparency and provenance must become baseline expectations. Requiring software bills of materials, we talked about that yesterday, SBOMs, cryptographic code signing, and secure build pipelines ensures that every component within the critical systems can be traced, verified, and updated safely. These requirements, alongside coordinated vulnerability disclosure programs, reduce hidden dependencies that adversaries often exploit. Complementing these measures as baseline of technical controls, such as CIS critical security controls, should be mandated across all sectors. Implementing secure configurations, multi-factor authentication, patch management, and centralized logging dramatically improved organizational resilience and limits the adversary dwell time. Unified standards must also extend to how organizations share and analyze threat intelligence. Using common detection and telemetry models such as the MITRE ATT&CK framework allows incident responders and security operations centers to describe, detect, and mitigate the adversary behavior in consistent, machine-readable terms. Standardized information sharing formats like STIX and TAXII enable rapid and automated exchange of indicators of compromise and tactics, techniques, and procedures between governments and industry while preserving privacy and liability protections. In parallel, secure by design software development should be formalized through DevSecOps practices like integrating threat modeling, automated security testing, and continuous validation directly into development pipelines. Because critical infrastructure often relies on legacy or specialized systems, OT and ICS security standards must align with IEC 62443, the Industrial Automation and Control Systems principles. Network segmentation, monitor data flows, and safe update mechanisms protect physical processes without disrupting operational safety. For cross-border consistency, Organizations should align their information security management systems with ISO 27001, enabling shared auditing and certification standards that reduce compliance friction and improve transparency among suppliers and partners. To make these standards durable, governments and industry consortia must embed them with the policy, procurement, and performance mechanisms. Procurement rules should require vendors to demonstrate alignment with CSF, CIS, and ISO frameworks, provide those software bill of materials, and maintain continuous assurance attestations. Regulators can further reinforce adoption through minimal control baselines and defined incident reporting windows. Certification schemes and audit evidence must be harmonized to avoid duplication and ensure assessments are comparable across industries. Simultaneously, incentive structures such as liability safe harbors for rapid disclosure of financial rewards for secure practices only encourage collaboration rather than create an environment of compliance fatigue. Cybersecurity effectiveness ultimately depends on people and processes as much as technology. Establishing workforce standards, recurring training, and exercise requirements ensures that technical and operational teams remain prepared for emerging threats. Regular red team and tabletop exercises, combined with cross-sector simulations, validate readiness and identify procedural weaknesses before the adversaries can exploit them. Common performance metrics, such as mean time to detect and remediate incidents, the percentage of assets covered by software bills and materials, and vulnerability closure rates, create a measurable accountability and support data-driven improvement in any organization. Some of the most immediate priorities for implementation should focus on these two areas: strengthening identity through zero trust environments across all remote and administrative access points, mandating software bill of materials and secure build pipelines for any software that touches critical systems or government networks. These two steps, taken in parallel, address both the most common attack vectors and the most dangerous systemic risks. So in summary, confronting the modern cyber threat landscape requires a unified standards ecosystem that integrates governance, technology, and accountability. Harmonizing the frameworks like the NIST cybersecurity framework, zero trust architecture, and SBOM-based software assurance provides a scalable foundation for national resilience. When combined with consistent metrics, sector collaboration, and strong supply chain security, these cohesive standards will transform cybersecurity from a fragmented technical function into a strategic pillar of trust, safety, and economic stability. As we stand on the edge of this digital frontier, one truth is clear. Our critical infrastructure is only as strong as the cybersecurity that protects it. The power grids that light our homes, the pipelines that fuel our economy, the systems that connect our hospitals and our cities, they are no longer separate worlds. They are, in fact, lifelines of our modern civilization. And as discussed, they are constantly under attack. Every attack, every breach, every near miss reminds us that the threats are evolving faster than ever. But so are we. We are learning, adapting, building smarter defenses through innovation, partnership, and purpose. The future of cybersecurity isn't about fear. It's about foresight. It's about designing resilience into every line of code, every sensor, every network, to withstand the onslaughts of attacks. It's about recognizing that protecting our infrastructure isn't just an IT issue, but a national imperative whereby our national security depends. The path forward will demand more collaboration than competition, more unity than silos, and more action than talk. Because the adversaries we face are coordinated, and so we must be as well. So let's leave here with a shared mission to make cybersecurity not the weakest link in our infrastructure, but its greatest strength. The systems we secure today will power the nation we become tomorrow. Let's all make sure that our future is strong, resilient, and ready for whatever comes next. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you today. I hope it was worth your time and attention. Thank you for what you do to keep our infrastructure safe and secure. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take your questions.